What happens when a legendary singer with decades of grace and professionalism reaches her breaking point on live television in just 28 seconds? One dismissive comment will shatter years of respect and trigger the most shocking walkout in daytime TV history. Petula Clark sits across from Lorraine Kelly in the bright studio. The cameras are rolling. The audience is watching. Everything seems normal at first. Petula is there to talk about her incredible career, her new projects, and the music that changed generations. But what should have been a celebration quickly turns into something nobody saw coming. Lorraine starts the interview with a smile. She welcomes Petula to the show. The audience claps. Petula smiles back, looking elegant and poised as always. She has done thousands of interviews in her life. She knows how this works. But within minutes, something feels different. Something feels wrong. So Petula, Lorraine begins, leaning back in her chair with a casual wave of her hand. You've been around for quite a long time now, haven't you? It is a strange way to start. Petula's smile tightens just a little, but she nods politely. Yes, I've been very fortunate to have such a long career. Lorraine continues without missing a beat. I mean, you must have seen everything come and go. All these young stars today probably seem so different to you, don't they? Petula shifts in her seat. Well, every generation has its own unique voice. I think that is beautiful. But Lorraine is not really listening. She is already moving to her next point, looking down at her notes. Downtown. That was your big hit, wasn't it? That must have been, 60 years ago now? 1964, Petula corrects gently. So yes, quite a while ago, but I'm still very proud of it. Right, Lorraine says, waving her hand again, like she is swatting away something unimportant. But that was really your only major hit, wasn't it? I mean, after that, things sort of fizzled out. The audience goes quiet. Even the camera operators seem to tense up. Petula's face changes. The smile is gone now. She sits up straighter. Actually, that is not accurate, Petula says, her voice calm but firm. I had many successful records after Downtown. I sign your letter. My love, don't sleep in the subway. This is my song. I had 15 consecutive top 40 hits in the United States alone. Lorraine barely acknowledges this. She glances at her notes again and shrugs. Well, I think most people just remember Downtown. That is the one everyone knows. Perhaps in your circles, Petula says quietly. But there is an edge to her voice now. Lorraine does not catch it. Or maybe she does not care. She leans forward with a big grin, like she is about to say something clever. You know what I find interesting, Petula? How singers from your era always seem to be doing these nostalgia tours now. Just playing the old hits over and over. Don't you ever get tired of singing the same songs? Petula takes a breath. She is trying to stay composed. I think audiences appreciate hearing songs that meant something to them. Music creates memories. That is a gift, not a burden. But it must feel a bit sad, though. Lorraine presses on, tilting her head with fake sympathy. I mean, knowing that your best years are behind you, that the music world has moved on without you. The studio is completely silent now. Everyone can feel the tension building. Petula's hands grip the armrests of her chair. My best years are not behind me, Petula says, her voice steady but cold. I am still recording. I am still performing. I am still creating. Lorraine laughs. It is a dismissive, tinkling laugh that makes everything worse. Oh, come on, Petula. Let's be honest here. Nobody is really buying new music from artists your age. People want you to be the person they remember, not who you are now. That does it. Petula's eyes flash. What exactly are you trying to say, Lorraine? I'm just being realistic, Lorraine says with a shrug, like she has not just insulted her guest on live television. The industry has changed. You had your time. Now it's about streaming and TikTok and all these things that, let's face it, you probably don't even understand. I understand plenty, Petula says sharply. What I don't understand is why you invited me here if you have so little respect for what I've accomplished. Lorraine holds up her hands in mock surrender. Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm not saying you weren't good back in the day. I'm just saying the day has passed. The audience gasps. Petula goes very still. For a moment, nobody knows what is going to happen next. Then Petula reaches down and unclips her microphone. The sound of the clip releasing echoes through the studio speakers. What are you doing? Lorraine asks, her smile finally fading. I'm leaving, Petula says simply, standing up from her chair with quiet dignity. I came here to have a conversation, not to be patronized and belittled. Oh, come on, Lorraine says, but her voice sounds nervous now. You can't just walk off. We're in the middle of an interview. An interview requires two people having a respectful exchange, Petula says, placing her microphone carefully on the chair. This is just you talking down to someone you clearly think is irrelevant. I won't sit here and be treated this way. Lorraine's face flushes red. She looks around at her crew, then back at Petula. This is ridiculous. You're being oversensitive. I was just making conversation. No, Petula says, her voice ringing clear through the studio. You were being rude. There is a difference. I've interviewed hundreds of celebrities. Lorraine snaps, her polished persona cracking. Nobody has ever walked off my show before. Then perhaps nobody has ever been disrespected quite like this before, Petula replies. Or perhaps they just had less self-respect than I do. The audience starts to murmur. Some people are shocked. Others are nodding in agreement. Lorraine looks around desperately, trying to regain control of the situation. Petula, please, Lorraine says, but it sounds more like a command than a request. Sit back down. We can talk about something else. I don't think so, Petula says. She turns to leave, but Lorraine's voice stops her. You do realize how this makes you look, don't you? Lorraine calls out. Walking off like some kind of diva. People will think you can't handle a simple interview. Petula turns back slowly. Her expression is calm, but her eyes are fierce. Let them think what they want. I know the truth. I've been in this business for longer than you've been alive, Lorraine. I've worked with the greatest talents in the world. I've performed for presidents and queens. I've earned respect through decades of hard work and professionalism. I don't need to prove anything to you or to anyone watching. Well, that's a lovely speech, Lorraine says, her voice dripping with sarcasm now. But you're still walking off my show, which is incredibly unprofessional. Unprofessional? Petula repeats, and for the first time she sounds genuinely angry. You want to talk about unprofessional? You invited me here under the pretense of celebrating my career, and instead you've spent the entire time suggesting I'm washed up, irrelevant, and too old to matter. That is unprofessional. That is disrespectful. And frankly, that is cruel. The studio has gone dead quiet again. Even the crew members have stopped moving. Everyone is watching this unfold like they cannot believe it is really happening. Lorraine stands up now too, her face tight with anger. I was trying to have an honest conversation. Maybe you're just not used to people being real with you anymore. Maybe everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear. Honest? Petula says, her voice rising slightly. There is nothing honest about what you've been doing. You've been condescending from the moment I sat down. Every question has been designed to diminish me, to make me feel small, to remind me and your audience that you think my time is past. I'm a journalist, Lorraine says defensively. I ask the questions people want answered. No, Petula counters. You ask the questions that make you feel important. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty, Lorraine. What you've been doing is the latter. Lorraine's jaw drops. She clearly did not expect Petula to fight back like this. I can't believe you're saying this. I've always been fair in my interviews. Fair? Petula shakes her head slowly. You wouldn't know fair if it sat in that chair and sang downtown for you. You've been dismissive, condescending, and frankly quite mean-spirited. I've been nothing but polite to you, and you've repaid that with contempt. This is absurd, Lorraine sputters. You're twisting everything I said. Am I? Petula asks. Let's review, shall we? You started by pointing out how long I've been around, as if longevity were a fault rather than an achievement. You then dismissed my entire catalog of hits, reducing my career to one song. You suggested that I'm doing nostalgia tours because I have nothing else to offer. You told me my best years are behind me. You implied I don't understand modern technology, and you finished by saying my time is past. Did I miss anything? The silence that follows is deafening. Lorraine opens her mouth, then closes it again. She has no response, because Petula has just laid out exactly what happened, and there's no denying it. I thought so, Petula says quietly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have better places to be than somewhere I'm not valued. She turns to walk away again, but Lorraine cannot let it go. Her voice rises, sharp and defensive. You're making a huge mistake, Petula. Walking off like this, you'll regret it. Petula stops at the edge of the set and looks back one final time. When she speaks, her voice is calm and measured, but every word hits like a hammer. The only thing I regret, Lorraine, is that I didn't walk off sooner. I've spent my entire career conducting myself with grace and professionalism. Even in difficult situations, I've faced criticism. I've faced challenges. I've faced changes in the industry that would have broken lesser artists. But I've never, ever allowed anyone to treat me with such blatant disrespect, and I'm not going to start now. So that's it? Lorraine says, her voice cracking slightly. You're just going to leave? Yes, Petula says simply. I am, because I value myself too much to stay somewhere I'm being treated like yesterday's news. And if you had any respect for the people you interview, you would understand that. With that, Petula Clark walks off the set. The camera follows her for a moment as she moves through the backstage area, her head held high, her posture perfect. She does not look back. She does not hesitate. She simply leaves. Back on the set, Lorraine stands alone, looking around at her crew and her audience. The cameras are still rolling. Everyone is staring. She opens her mouth several times, trying to find something to say, but nothing comes out. Finally, she looks directly at the camera. Well, she says, her voice shaky, that was unexpected. We'll take a quick break and be right back. But everyone watching knows the damage is done. In less than 10 minutes, what should have been a pleasant interview has turned into a complete disaster. The audience sits in stunned silence. The crew members exchange glances. Nobody quite knows what to do. In the green room, Petula collects her belongings. Her hands are steady. Her face is composed. Someone from the production team approaches nervously. Miss Clark, the young woman says hesitantly, is there anything we can do? Can we get you anything? Petula smiles at her, a genuine warm smile that shows no trace of the anger from moments before. That is very kind of you, dear, but I'm perfectly fine. I just need to leave now. I'm so sorry about what happened, the woman says, her eyes wide. That shouldn't have happened. You didn't deserve that. Thank you for saying so, Petula replies, touching the woman's arm gently. But please don't worry. I've been in this business a very long time. I know how to handle myself. As Petula makes her way toward the exit, word has already spread through the studio. People are whispering. Phones are coming out. Everyone knows that what just happened was extraordinary. Legendary performers do not walk off television shows, especially not performers like Petula Clark, who are known for their professionalism and grace. But that is exactly why her walkout is so powerful. This is not someone throwing a tantrum. This is not someone being difficult or demanding. This is someone who reached their limit after being pushed too far. This is someone standing up for their dignity and their worth. Back on set, Lorraine is trying to compose herself during the commercial break. Her producers are huddled around her, speaking in low, urgent voices. The audience is buzzing with conversation. Everyone is processing what they just witnessed. One thing becomes clear very quickly. The people in the studio, the people who watch the whole thing unfold live, they are not on Lorraine's side. The whispers floating through the audience are all variations of the same sentiment. That was cruel. She didn't deserve that. Good for her for leaving. Why was Lorraine so mean? When the show comes back from commercial break, Lorraine sits alone at her desk. Petula's empty chair remains on the set, a stark reminder of what just happened. Lorraine clears her throat and looks into the camera. As you saw, she begins, her voice carefully controlled. Our guest, Petula Clark, decided to leave the interview. I want to apologize if anything I said was misunderstood or taken the wrong way. That certainly was not my intention. But even her apology sounds defensive. She is not apologizing for what she said. She is apologizing for how it was received. She is suggesting that Petula misunderstood, rather than acknowledging that her questions were inappropriate. The rest of the show limps along awkwardly. Lorraine tries to move on to other segments, but the energy is completely wrong. Everyone is still thinking about what happened. The elephant in the room is impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Petula is already in her car, being driven away from the studio. She looks out the window at the passing streets, her expression thoughtful. Her phone is buzzing constantly in her bag, but she ignores it for now. She needs a moment to process what just happened. She thinks about all the interviews she has done over the years. The good ones, where she connected with the host and the audience. The mediocre ones, where it was just a job to get through. And yes, even some difficult ones, where she faced tough questions or skeptical interviewers. But nothing quite like what just happened with Lorraine. What bothered her most was not the questions themselves, although they were certainly rude. It was the attitude behind them, the assumption that age diminishes value, the belief that past success somehow makes you irrelevant to the present, the casual cruelty disguised as honesty. Petula has never been one to demand special treatment. She has always been gracious with her fans, patient with journalists, professional with everyone she works with. But there is a difference between being humble and allowing yourself to be diminished. There is a difference between being gracious and being a doormat. And today, in that moment when Lorraine said her time had passed, something clicked in Petula's mind. She realized she had a choice. She could sit there and take it, smile through it, finish the interview and walk away feeling small, or she could stand up, literally and figuratively, and say no. This is not acceptable. I will not participate in this. The decision, once made, was easy. She unclipped her microphone, stood up, and left. And in doing so, she sent a clear message, not just to Lorraine, but to anyone watching. You do not have to accept disrespect. You do not have to smile through cruelty. You can say no. You can leave. You can choose yourself. Back at the studio, the aftermath is still unfolding. Producers are scrambling to figure out what to do. The social media team is watching in horror as clips of the interview start spreading online. The audience members are leaving the studio, already pulling out their phones to tell everyone they know about what they just witnessed. And Lorraine sits in her dressing room after the show ends, staring at herself in the mirror. She is angry, defensive, confused about why everyone is acting like she did something wrong. In her mind, she was just doing her job, asking questions, being real, creating interesting television. But that is the problem, isn't it? She was so focused on creating a moment, on being provocative, on pushing buttons, that she forgot about the human being sitting across from her. She forgot that Petula Clark is not just a name or a nostalgia act or a symbol of a bygone era. She is a person with feelings, with dignity, with a lifetime of achievements that deserve respect. Lorraine justified her approach by calling it honesty. But there is nothing honest about being cruel. There's nothing brave about punching down. There is nothing journalistic about belittling someone under the guise of having a real conversation. And the irony is that if Lorraine had approached the interview with genuine curiosity and respect, she could have had something truly special. Petula Clark has an incredible story. She has lived through decades of change in the music industry. She has insights and experiences that are genuinely fascinating. She has wisdom earned through years of navigating a difficult business while maintaining her integrity. But instead of exploring any of that, Lorraine chose to focus on age, on relevance, on trying to make Petula feel small. And in doing so, she made herself small instead. The thing about respect is that it is not something you demand. It is something you earn, and you earn it by showing respect to others, especially to those who came before you, who paved the way, who built the industry that you now benefit from. Petula Clark did not need to prove anything to Lorraine Kelly. Her career speaks for itself. Her achievements are undeniable. Her impact on music is permanent. Walking off that show did not diminish her. It elevated her. Because what people will remember from this interview is not Lorraine's pointed questions or clever commentary. What they will remember is Petula Clark standing up, speaking her truth, and walking away with her head held high. They will remember a woman in her 80s, showing more strength and dignity than a host half her age. They will remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own diminishment. In the car, Petula finally takes out her phone and looks at the messages flooding in. Friends, colleagues, fans, all reaching out with support. They saw what happened. They understood. They are proud of her. She smiles slightly and puts the phone away. She does not need validation from others, though it is nice to have their support. She knows she did the right thing. She knows that standing up for yourself is never the wrong choice, even when it is difficult, even when it is public, even when it might be controversial. Petula Clark has spent her life making music that lifts people up, that brings joy, that creates connection. She has conducted herself with grace and professionalism through every phase of her career. She has treated people with kindness and respect. And today, she reminded everyone that grace does not mean accepting disrespect. Professionalism does not mean tolerating cruelty. Kindness does not mean allowing yourself to be diminished. Sometimes, the most graceful thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes, the most professional response is to refuse to participate. Sometimes, kindness to yourself means saying no to someone else's unkindness. As the car pulls away from the city, heading wherever Petula needs to go next, she feels at peace. She knows there will be questions, discussions, maybe even some criticism. Some people might say she should have stayed, should have handled it differently, should have been more understanding. But Petula knows the truth. And the truth is this: she gave that interview a chance. She answered the questions politely. She tried to redirect when things became uncomfortable. She maintained her composure even as Lorraine's comments became increasingly dismissive. She did everything right. And when it became clear that nothing she said or did would change the tone of the interview, when it became obvious that Lorraine was determined to portray her as a relic of the past, she made a choice. She chose herself. She chose her dignity. She chose to walk away. And that choice, that moment of standing up and saying enough, that is what people will remember. Not as a diva moment, not as unprofessional behavior, but as a powerful statement about self-worth, about boundaries, about refusing to accept less than you deserve. Petula Clark walked onto that set as a legend. She walked off as something more, as an example, as a reminder, as proof that you are never too old, never too established, never too far in your career to stand up for yourself. The interview was supposed to last 30 minutes. It lasted less than 10. But in those few minutes, something important happened, something that transcended television, transcended entertainment, transcended the usual drama of talk shows. A woman looked at the disrespect being directed at her, weighed her options, and chose dignity over compliance. She chose truth over politeness. She chose herself over the show, and in doing so, Petula Clark reminded everyone watching of something we sometimes forget, that we teach people how to treat us, that we have the power to walk away from situations that diminish us. That grace is not the same as being a doormat, that you can be kind and still have boundaries, that you can be professional and still demand respect. Lorraine Kelly learned that lesson the hard way. She pushed too far, dismissed too casually, underestimated too greatly. She thought she could control the narrative, create drama, make interesting television at someone else's expense. Instead, she created a moment that will define her differently than she intended. Not as a fearless interviewer asking tough questions, but as someone who confused cruelty with honesty, who mistook condescension for candor, who learned too late that some people will not tolerate being disrespected, regardless of the cameras or the audience or the consequences. And Petula Clark, the legendary singer who has brought joy to millions, who has navigated the impossible landscape of show business for decades, who has maintained her dignity through every challenge, added one more achievement to her remarkable legacy. She showed the world how to walk away. She showed everyone watching that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is enough. She showed that respect is not negotiable, that dignity is not optional, that your worth is not determined by someone else's opinion. In 28 seconds, one dismissive comment triggered a walkout that will be discussed and analyzed and remembered long after that episode of television fades into obscurity. But more than that, it sparked a conversation about how we treat people, about the value of experience, about the difference between honest dialogue and casual cruelty. Petula Clark did not storm off in anger, though she had every right to be angry. She left with composure, with clarity, with purpose. She stated her case, stood her ground, and walked away. And in doing so, she gave everyone watching permission to do the same in their own lives. Permission to say no, permission to demand better, permission to choose themselves. That is the real story here. Not the drama of a celebrity walking off a talk show, but the deeper truth underneath. That respect matters. That dignity matters. That how we treat people, especially those we perceive as vulnerable or past their prime, says everything about who we are. Lorraine Kelly thought she was conducting an interview. Instead, she taught a masterclass in what not to do. And Petula Clark, with grace and strength and quiet power, taught everyone watching how to respond when someone tries to make you feel less than you are. Walk away. Hold your head high. Know your worth. And never, ever let anyone convince you that your time has passed. Because as long as you refuse to accept that narrative, as long as you stand up for yourself, as long as you choose dignity over convenience, your time will never pass. Your value will never diminish. Your worth will never be determined by someone else's limited perspective. That is what happened when a legend walked onto a talk show expecting respect and left when she didn't receive it. That is what happened in 28 seconds that changed everything. That is what happened when Petula Clark reminded the world that some people will never be diminished, no matter how hard others try.